Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast. Today we have another Air Force vet who's took to writing and is a friend to imaginary people, just like all the rest of us. Here's Brian Simpson. Hi, Brian.
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. It's all busy, isn't it? Keeping everything going. What are you up to now? What kind of stuff you doing?
Well, in my real life, I'm a construction manager. So I'm back in Florida building houses after a decade or so of building them down in the Caribbean. We'll see how long it lasts before I go back to the islands. I seem to always end up back there. So
We were saying before we came on air that you wasn't sure whether it was the right decision to come back. The world's gone a bit crazy, hasn't it?
yeah, it's gone completely bonkers, and it's still bonkers if I'm living in the Caribbean, but it's I'm living in the Caribbean, right? So
It's
it's
more relaxing madness, yeah.
well, more relaxing, and you just kind of watch the world like you're watching a bad movie or something, and glad you're not in it, right? Uh,
Well, yeah. England's now better, to be honest, at the minute. As far as writing, when did you start writing, Brian?
oh, I've played around with writing for 30 years, but only about 10 years ago, I wrote my first novel. Uh, I probably started writing it about 12 or 13 years ago, but I was living in Anguilla, and me and some buddies of mine we were probably drinking too much every Friday night, and one night one of the guys said, "You're a writer, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I write some." And he said, "You really need to write a book about this." And so that's where the book Island Dogs came from, even though it's a
I'll see that
fictitious.
on your site. Yeah, we'll put a
Right.
link to your site in the description, just so everybody can grab that.
So that
Um,
was it's a novel, it's a fiction book, but loosely based on reality. And then after that, the books just kept coming. I'm getting ready to release my fifth book now, my fourth Caribbean book. So plus I have four children's books, which are completely separate from those.
I
But
got you. Which ones are doing the best for you?
oh, probably yeah, they go up and down. Probably my novels, right? I
Probably
don't.
the novels best, yeah.
I wrote my children's book for my daughters when they were small, and for my grandchildren now.
Okay,
And
that's
just
good.
every couple of years, I add another one, but I don't really market them too much, other than just like to have them there for kids.
Yeah, that's it. It's just something that you're doing and sort of laying down there the legacy, and that's uh, that's amazing. The the time in the Caribbean. Um, Tell me about that then. How crazy is that over there? Is that not crazy at all? It's all chilled out, or
Well, sadly, it's getting ruined and it's coming up to speed with the rest of the world, but still, it has the
we
Caribbean
have to laugh
attitude.
about it, don't we? Instead of us crying.
Yeah, but because look, when I first started down there, back in 2007, 2008, something like that, uh, you'd ask a guy, "You're going to finish today?" And he'd say, "Yeah, don't worry about it, man." He'd say, "Well, don't worry about it, as in you're going to finish or you're not going to finish." "Yeah, we're cool. We're cool."
Manana,
You
yeah.
just go in circles, and at the end of the day, you have no idea if he's going to finish or he's not, and you just live with it, right? And a lot of people can't take it. A lot of guys, a lot of women go down there for professional careers, and they thrive, and a lot of them go down and they say, "I can't do this." But I embraced it. I loved it. I
Just too
loved it.
relaxed, too relaxed. How do you manage to finish a book when you're surrounded by that sort of nice, it'll do tomorrow kind of world?
Noise.
Procrastination must be the method of the day.
Yeah, and noise doesn't bother me when I'm writing. When I first started writing years and years ago, I was the same as everybody. You start writing, and then and somebody will walk in the room and say something, and you completely lose your train of thought. But now I can write in an airport. I can write in a coffee shop. It doesn't. I can
Uh,
I can be writing along, and my wife comes in and asks me a question, and I answer her and keep writing and go just it just doesn't really.
Now that is a superpower. I think that's a superpower. I have to stay in the zone. If people interrupt me, that can throw me way off, and I get frustrated. My lad will come in to say hello to me when he's back from college or whatever, and it's like, no. But then obviously you can't sort of send people away when they come to see you, particularly family. But
Well,
I do get frustrated. I do get frustrated. I'm just in the zone.
Yeah, I work full time, 45, 50 hours a week. So, I still have to have my kids are grown, but I still have to have family time and socializing time. So writing just has to come when I have time, and whether it's an hour at a time or 10 minutes at a time. And I can't ask everyone in the house to be quiet so I can write. So
That's good that you've got through that. Now, are you a plotter? Do you sort of plot it all out and then write it, or are you pantser more so?
I am absolutely not a plotter. I'm not an outliner. I'm not a web thing. I sit down and I ponder. I write some short stories, and some of them turn into books, some of them don't. But I'll sit down. I use Avis Humphrey as an example as my second book, and I was sitting in a coffee shop one day trying to think of something to write. And I saw an Avis car rental sign outside, and I just got done talking to a friend of mine named Humphrey, and I wrote, Avis Humphrey has problems. That's a book. that's a book right there. As it turned out, that line never made it into the book, but that was the start of the book. And when I start books, it just starts with a line or a paragraph or something, and then it just grows.
A superb imagination, then, sort of create it on the fly, effectively.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm writing, I'll finish a chapter and I'll look at it and I was like, whoa, where did that come from? It wasn't really, sometimes as you're writing what's going to happen, maybe next chapter or later in the book, this guy's going to do something, or this girl's going to do something, but sometimes it's just like, I didn't, a character gets created and I say, I did not see him coming.
That's an interesting world. I don't know how I could do with that, really. I think I sort of have a bit of a plan. I think the more I write, the more I start to plot a bit more. But generally, the characters do sort of take over and change the plot if you have plotted it. So after you've done your first draft, how does your editing take shape?
Well, I always write in Microsoft Word because I like the track changes in it. I mean, because I had an editor for my first two books, and my wife's a school teacher, so we'd edit it, then we'd send it off to the editor, and he'd do his editing, and we'd go back and forth a couple times. And usually a book will get edited 7 to 10 times, maybe more.
Okay.
But each edit gets a little easier, right?
Yeah.
But as it turned out, sadly, my third book, I was trying to reach my editor and he wasn't answering, and I found out he died.
Oh, that's not great.
I mean, he was very old, right? But we only stayed in touch when I was writing, and I hadn't talked to him for a year or so, and I sent him some message, and then so he was gone, and then my wife and I just started editing them ourselves.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, because so many people out there call themselves editors, so they can charge 3 to 10 cents a word, and you get it back.
Yeah, it can be expensive, can't it, Brian?
Well, I don't mind paying it if they're actually better than I am. Right. When you send them a sample and they send it back, and it's like, well, if I had just edited this myself before I sent it, it would have been better than when I get back from the editor.
Yeah, I think there are some poor quality people out there, some very good also, but it's a difficult one. Your wife, is she your main champion for your writing then, or is she a bit too close to it if she's doing lots of editing?
Well, she's the main champion, and she's a hard-nosed editor. And when I say main champion, she cuts me no slack. She'll tell me, no, this is wrong or that's wrong, and we'll argue about it. And usually I win, but then after I look at it for another couple weeks, I say, all right, she was right, and I'll make the change. But I have to have the fight first, right? I mean, you can't give somebody
You can't just
free.
admit defeat straight away. No.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you make it too easy for them, then they start changing everything. So I want my editor to think as hard as I do when they want to make a change.
Fantastic. And do you send it out for beta reading, or is it go to your editor and then that's it?
I do it less and less now for a couple of reasons. The paid beta readers just make a lot of changes because they feel like they have to, because you paid them to give their
I don't
2
pay for
cents.
beta readers. I don't pay for beta readers.
And then the unpaid ones, even I don't care how much I explain to them, I'm sending this to you to help me, which means you're going to have to criticize it. And it's like pulling teeth. They want to tell you, oh, I really like this chapter. I really like. It's like, well, that's nice, but I need to know which ones you didn't like. And it's hard to extract negative comments about your writing, even when you're insisting to get it. So this last one I wrote, I only sent it out to 3 people. One of them hasn't answered me yet, although she swore to me she would months ago. One of them was actually helpful, and she only made a couple suggestions, but both of them were key suggestions. Yeah. And the third one, we're supposed to get together this week. So,
yeah, I think I had a writing group. I called it the Shark Tank because I wanted people to show their teeth, as it were. But when you're checking something that somebody else, and then you're checking their stuff and they're checking yours, you do end up being a little bit polite, I think, as much as you want to do that. I'm testing out Scriberfile. I've just started doing that. I've given some critiques, but I haven't put my own in for critique yet. I'm sort of being my own critique before I sort of take it to that level. So we'll have to see whether that comes out any better. But I think you don't pay for beta readers, surely. I think that wouldn't make sense. That's like an editor you'd pay for, isn't it?
Yeah. When people ask me if I read their stuff, I give a disclaimer. I tell them, you're sure? Because if it sucks, I'm going to tell you.
I do that. I think you have to do the old classic good, bad, good. But I mean, you've got to tell them, haven't you? You've got to tell them. When I was doing the Shark Tank, I would sort of have like a 5,000 word piece, and my overall summary would be like, nothing's happened. That is sort of, it's like so much flowery stuff, and nothing's really happened. And that's one thing I focus on my writing is pacing. So how do you get pacing right, Brian?
So my stories tend to be, I mean, obviously they have a story to them, but they tend to be about the characters more than the story. So the first thing you have to do is you have to have interesting characters. If they're not interesting, you can't do a story about characters, right? A guy that does brickwork for a living and he doesn't really have anything interesting, and he's not witty and he's not funny. It's like, so you got an old guy that goes and does bricks every day and you got 4 chapters on him. I mean, it's not very. So the first thing you have to do is you have to come up with interesting people in interesting situations, and then grow it into a story that is, in my case, they're usually fun to read. The big challenge with that is that I find that a lot of writers can't do is your characters have to stay true to who they are. They can't be the wimpy guy the whole book, then all of a sudden they're stepping up to the plate and they're the hero, and vice versa. They can't be this strong woman all the way through, and all of a sudden
you got to have a progression. I mean, you got to have a progression.
Yeah. So
I think from my point of view, a lot of my characters are not always, they're not perfect characters, and sometimes people will read the book and some people will like them and some people say, well, I didn't quite like her. I didn't like what they did. I think they were wrong, and then sort of like I felt sorry for him, but it's sort of not specifically have the same opinion from different readers. I think, and that makes it deeper, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when you have character-driven stories, first of all, your readers have to like character-driven stories, right? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
them they like murder mystery, and the characters don't even really matter. They got the story and the
Yeah.
crime and how it's solved and stuff. So you lose a certain percentage right off the bat. My controversial is not the right word, but in Island Dogs there was a lot of drinking. It was an island bar
Yeah.
story, and it's funny because I had a couple critiques from people in Anguilla. One was a doctor. He said on Amazon, he said, "Our island is not like this." Well, I knew enough not to respond to any negative. I don't respond to feedback at all on Amazon. I just happy to get it and I leave it. But my wife was more upset, because he gave it like a 1 star and said our island's not like this. And of course, my first response in my head is, "Hey, I hung out with those guys on your island. I don't know what to tell you."
Well, the thing is, everybody's different. People have a perception of a place, but there's going to be variety everywhere. As we know, there's the old song, as the old song goes, there's good and bad in everyone. And
yeah. And look, some people work Monday through Friday and go to bed at 9 and go to church on Sunday. And some people, you're happy if they show up to work and they forgot what a church looks like and they're hungover every Sunday, right? And then there's all the people in between. And
that's right.
and I try to get a mixture of them in my stories. I think my newest book has a really good mixture. It even has one old church lady that's always walking by the bar saying, "God is good, Mr. Jamie," and giving words of encouragement, right? And not in a not mocking her way. She's a key part of the book, right? So try to get a better mixture of the society there.
The sales wise, it's difficult to get traction. I was talking to David Applegate recently, and there's more books being published in the last 12 months than perhaps in the whole of time. So how do we gain traction? How do you gain traction for your books?
I go in waves. Most of the time I have very little traction. Then sometimes it looks like it's almost going to take off and I might have hope of being a professional author, and then it dies right back down and you hit it right on the head. I tell people, I don't proclaim to be Hemingway or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but my books are written very well. They're edited very well. They're put together very well. Professional covers. I mean, this isn't just a hobby for me that I'm cranking out a bunch of fantasy books or something. Yeah. But every time I put my books for sale, they're going up against millions of books that are horrifically written. And I've read. I always belonged to a group one time, just for a little while. Self-published authors we're going to read the books, and then we're going to, try to get them some publicity. And the problem was, I think 2 out of the first 3 I read were so bad. Not the story. I mean, it was, maybe they aren't worth the stories that I would read. They were written so bad that it's like, oh my God, did you have anybody edit this thing? There's typos, there's misspellings. The chapter 3 made no sense whatsoever. I don't even know why it was there. And, just stuff like that. And for every one of my books, it's 100 of those.
The thing is, Brian, I spoke to an author recently and they'd paid over $1,000 to have this book edited. And it wasn't a big book. We're only talking sort of 80 pages. I spotted a mistake on the second line. And then I flicked through the book a bit more, and there's more and more errors, and they'd paid like $1,000.
Yeah. So I paid more than that for my first 2 books. But now my first book, I had no idea what I was doing, right? So Bob, the old guy that was my editor, he showed us the correct way to format it, and just the mechanical mistakes we were making in setting a book up to be published. I didn't back then. I didn't know that you could just go on and set it up so every paragraph would indent. So I would tab the first line of every paragraph, and the poor guy had to go out and take all those tabs out of a 300-page book. And he actually swore at me. He said, if I ever do it again, he won't edit another book for me. But with that said, he told me my book was the most edited book he ever received to start with. That it was 95% there when he got it. So when he was editing it, he could really just go look for those mistakes and those phrases that shouldn't have been there, and maybe a section that should be deleted. But he told me, he said, I literally get people say, will you edit my book? And I tell them how much, and they send it to me. And it's a stack of notes that they pretty much want me to make a book out of. And he says, I receive everything from that all the way up to a well-edited book. But if you send off a book to be edited and it's horrible, the editor is going to miss a lot of stuff. And if they're not a good editor on top of that, you know.
Well, this one in particular, there's very bad typos. Very bad typos in it, and people can. I think there's some editors. It's like what, and this was a publishing house editor, not a freelance editor.
Yeah,
which is
publishing house editors are just somebody that got hired, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Really, I guess you're right.
I mean,
so how can we pop ours out so people can see that they're well edited?
Say that again.
How can we pop ours out of the melee to lift them up?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? I haven't found a way yet. The biggest couple months I ever had was when I was doing a fundraiser for Anguilla years ago, when they get hit by a hurricane, and I sold a lot of books. But unfortunately for me, I mean, I had committed the money back to Anguilla, so that's where it went. I didn't keep it, but I have not found the golden ticket yet. I promise you.
We're all looking for that moonshot, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, right now I have one book I'm redoing the cover on. The first three artists out of Denmark did the first three covers. Madsberg did them. Didn't want to pay him and didn't really want that type of cover for my fourth book. So we just did an amateur one, but I'm trying to get that one redone. But artists are hard to find. Everyone can do a cover that it looks exactly like every cover in Barnes and Noble, and that's not what I prefer. I prefer my covers to be something that you could hang on the wall if you wanted.
Well, if the artist is going to go to AI to create the cover, then you might as well do it yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure it out because I know what I want for my fifth cover, and I made the mistake a couple of weeks ago of putting it on Twitter and saying, look, this is what I'm looking for. I don't want cartoons. I don't want anime. I don't want Fantasia, erotica. It's an adult book, and I have I want an actual artist. And of course, about 100 people sent me stuff like comic strips and anime and computer generated, not good AI generated, just computer generated things that they look like they bought a program and studied it for 4 hours and said, now I'm an artist. So that turned out to be a complete bust. My wife's trying to hire a local artist here in Florida now. We'll see, because artists are funny. First of all, nobody knows them, so they don't want to hire them. And then 4 people notice them, and then they want $900 a picture. And
I think that's
last week, man.
That's it. I used Fiverr when for my Awakening series, my first 3 books. I used Fiverr, and there's a lady, like Iranian woman, I think it was, that did a superb job. I complained, and well, not exactly complained. I had lots of revisions, and she was very attentive and did a really good job for me. So I'm really pleased. That was the what's the name one?
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Time to click. Yeah. All good.
Yeah.
Right then, we have to just march on waiting for the moonshot, don't we?
Yeah. Look, I haven't given up. Look, if I never sell a book, if I never sell another book, I'll still probably write 2 or 3 more. I
Yeah,
really
it's
enjoy
about,
the
I think
process.
we've had this discussion on here before. You've got to enjoy the process. It's not about making money. It's about enjoying the process. If you make money doing it, then great, but enjoy the process. Before we finish, what are your guilty pleasure? What's your guilty pleasures?
Oh, well, I've mellowed with time. I used to drink my share of beer and rum, and that's kind of tapered down these days. Not that I don't have any more, but when you're young, you recover by noon. At my age, you recover by noon 3 days from now. So so I don't do that much anymore. I really just I work. I spend time with my wife, and I write. And my daughters and grandchildren are live geographically other places than us, so we stay in touch with them. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty
So,
tame.
what would be your favorite movie, Brian?
Oh, The Outlaw Josie Wales, hands down.
The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood. He's.
Ah,
I don't have too many guys that I really think are just unique and that I enjoy, but Clint Eastwood, since I was a young man, I always liked him. So
well,
yeah,
I'll have to check that out. Good luck with the writing, and good luck getting back to the Caribbean. That's what you really want, isn't it?
well, we're going on vacation to St. Martin in November.
Okay,
So
well, that's all right then.
at work, they keep asking me, "You're coming back, right?"
Well, it depends how I get on when I'm there, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, tell them I'll keep you posted.
Nice one. Cheers, Brian. Thanks for coming on. Nice one.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.